Okay, this section is going to be, we're going to talk about working with your animals. Um, just as humans benefit from the TAT protocol, animals can benefit as well. In fact, they respond much faster than us. They don't have the emotional baggage and predetermined ideas that seem to slow us down a bit. They just take it as brand new. Animals just pick up on the energies that we're putting out to them, and they know that our intentions are to help them to recover and get well, to help them get through their trauma and drama of maybe an accident or maybe an operation that they've had or maybe a procedure they're going through, because they also are receptive to healing faster because they're so receptive to these things. As we work with dogs and cats and other animals, we don't focus on the intensity of the energies, but we also use the pose. Now, with the cat, that's a little difficult. With the cat, you kind of just hold your hands around their head if they can stay still long enough. With a dog, you just put your hands over their face like this, and then put your hand on the back of their head like here. And you speak for them. You talk for them, okay? So cats can be a little touchy, but people that own cats know that already. So anyway, first we have to do a little detective work with animals. We have to kind of figure out what their current behavior is as opposed to what it was before. And we have to kind of determine what the probable cause might be. So if they're involved in an accident or a medical procedure, you know right away that's what it is, okay? You don't have to really form an opinion about it. You just have to understand, well, that's what it is. Sometimes we have to guess. Like if a dog is left alone and it runs through the house and tears up the furniture and all of these things when you leave for work, well, you can kind of figure out that the dog has an abandonment issue or is lonesome or doesn't like being left alone. So that's a pretty good sign. But as a good detective, we can cat things about abandonment issues and operations and accidents. And here's how we do it. We take the pose with the dog and the cat, and then, like I had showed you earlier, and then what we do is we do the tat like we would with little children or children that can't express themselves, since dogs and cats can't talk. So we go ahead and put them in a pose. We put them in the pose. And what you have to understand right here is that there's a large number of people out there that have begun to look at alternate solutions and problems that animals have and have experienced. And there's a whole bunch of people out there that are doing things with energy work, with there's dog and cat psychiatrists with hypnosis, with acupuncture. There's a whole lot of people out there that are doing energy work with animals. So it's not far-fetched. There is a movement towards a holistic approach of dealing with animals, and there is a veterinarian in Chicago that has been seeing a great amount of animals, and she does acupressure with them and acupuncture with them, and she's been very successful. Much of the same ways our body react to the movement of chi, which we know that moves through our body. Dogs and cats also have chi movement through their bodies. So we can figure about how the meridians run through dog and cats, and we can make the pose in the same way that we pose ourselves. After all, we don't really treat our pets as strangers. We treat them as loved ones. In fact, we love them more than we love our friends and neighbors. The neat thing about our pets is that they respond to our loving attention. We know that pets and humans are pretty much the same. Well, not exactly, but similar. It's not unheard of to give your dog a cat an aspirin or some type of medication when they're sick. In fact, a neighbor of mine had a cat that that had a diabetic problem, and she used to give the cat insulin shots like twice a day. And it's not unheard of to do this kind of a thing. So veterinarians administer drugs all the time to animals, to dogs and cats and whatnot. We tend to think of animals as really close loved ones. So tending to an animal's need can be a very important thing, especially if they've experienced some kind of trauma or drama or a medical procedure or they've been in an accident. With the advent of many innovative people and veterinarians, we have developed quite a following and have even been assisting pets with many of the psychological and behavior modification techniques that humans are subject to. They're using a lot of the same techniques, although we have to do a lot of detective work to find out what we think might be wrong, but we're pretty good about these things. So the fact is that many of these things are going on, so it's not a far stretch to think that TAT would be beneficial for your cat or dog or your animal. So today we learn how to take care of our pets. Much the same rules apply to animals as it does to little children. We talked about that earlier in the earlier part of this video about how we place our hands in the air around a cat, and we would put our hands like this for a dog. And first thing we do is we ask permission of the animal to make sure that we can help with the problem. This is just a general direction that we want to go in. Sometimes we have to guess about what the problem is, but we're pretty good at figuring it out. We look at their discomfort, we look at their pain, we look at the, how they're reacting, how they've been reacting, what their past behavior was like, and what it's like now. So we can pretty well determine how they're experiencing these things. So one of the things we do is when we ask these questions, to make sure that we're on the right track, we do muscle testing. Now, if you're not familiar with that, that's a whole nother video that we'll go through about muscle testing, about various ways to muscle test. And one of them is if you rub your finger over your thumb and your little finger there, you can feel it smooth, and sometimes you can feel it a little sticky, and you can assign it a yes or a no. And there's other things that you can use. Some people use pendulums in the air, and some people use different types of muscle testing. But like I say, that's going to be another video all in itself. Okay, I talked about with cats about how we can't really hold them and touch them, so we kind of have to hope they'll sit still, and we put our hands around them. With a dog, we can place our hands over their eyes and their head, and they're pretty malleable. They're actually pretty. They like the attention, and so they'll kind of sit still for that. So when we say to the pet about the worst case scenario or trauma or drama or event or accident or medical procedure, whatever they're going through, what we want to do is we want to think of things like you've experienced a horrendous accident, or you've gone through a medical procedure, or you have experienced some things that have really been out of the ordinary. And just, I want to let you know it's over with, and it's not going to happen again. Or you're about to go through a medical procedure and it will involve the doctor cutting into your body and administering you drugs and chemicals that are foreign to you. Or you're experiencing a sense of abandonment. Every time that I leave for work, it seems like you tear up the whole house, and you find out that I think that maybe you're bored or you're lonesome, or you've been acting sad lately. I think there might be something wrong with you because you're not as perky as you used to be. So we're going to look at these as the first steps, okay? And then we're going to move on to the rest of the steps. So animals can have the same psychological needs that we have. They can be subject to the same type of hurt and pain that we have, believe it or not. So animals do have a different anatomy, but we can still kind of figure out that their automatic control system is pretty much the same. They have the fight, flight, or freeze parts of their body too that we all go through. So animals are actually easier to treat than human beings. And part of the reason is that they don't come to us with a lot of predetermined ideas or baggage or things like that. So animals are pretty well open to whatever we're going to do with them. And they're very attentive and they're very responsive, and they heal very quickly. Okay, for the following reasons, you'll see why animals are easier to treat. The reason is that they're less complicated emotionally. There's less invested in their illness. They live in the moment, and they don't dwell on things like their illness. They don't have a belief system that says they can't get better. They don't believe that they deserve to be ill. And in some animals, they have had years, and some of these things are supposed to be incurable, and they're not. Most of the time, they're just about their lives and what we do and how we know that they're not feeling well, they're not doing well. This leads itself, because it is less resistant, their automatic control system gets better a lot quicker and easier. So, how do I know that my pet is sick? Well, that's a $10,000 or the $100,000 question. I don't know what the game show was, but since your pet can't talk, it's difficult to know exactly why they feel bad. Some signs to look at are the animals, as they might appear lethargic. They might have less of an appetite. They appear to be limping around. They favor one limb over the other. They may notice a difference in the color of their stools. They may have diarrhea. They may smell funny, or they may have urinary problems. The animal may appear to be moody or have unusual behavior based on the present now and what they used to behave like before. Their fur may have matted or textured. They may appear lifeless. They may be rashy or flaky or scabby or smell bad. Their tongue may look coated, and their breath has a different odor. Their eyes may look glossy and lifeless. Okay, do animals respond to remote healings? You bet. Okay, in fact, there's an excellent reason why they respond to remote healing much better than other ways, because I'm sure that every time that you get ready to take your animal to the veterinarian or out, you get the animal cage out, and I gotta tell you, that's when the dog or cat goes and hides. They don't want to go to the veterinarian. So you know what they're going to do, and they have a sense of these things. They can sense things that are being done for them, and so you're actually going to be there with them, and I'm just going to be talking with you and talking you through the process. So you're going to be also giving your animal the energy that you have, and I'm going to be giving the animal that I have. So it's very effective. So animals can detect things. They know when there's an earthquake coming, and they know that if you get the cage out, that you have to put them in the car to go to the vet, they start to hide. Okay, so the reason the remote healing is so effective is that you don't have to leave your home, and the animal doesn't have to go through all the trauma getting in the cage and going in the car and all these different things. Besides, you don't have to try and hunt them down to do the protocol. Okay, so the main difference in the method of doing the remote healing as doing the in-person healing but the effects are almost the same. I have never seen any differences in the effects of an animal done with remote healing as opposed to done with in-person. And it also works on horses, but horses can be very temperamental, so I want to give you that as a heads up. So to sum up this week's video, I want to, how do you know your pet needs therapy? Well, if your animal has been through a recent surgery or a trauma or a drama or an accident or an illness, whatever appears to be causing the pain or poor movement, If your animal is not functioning or performing the best of his or her ability, if your animal has developed a behavioral problem and there's no apparent reason for them, if your pet develops weakness for no apparent reason, these are some of the main things you might want to look at as to why your pet might need therapy. So again, you can get a hold of me through my website and through my email, which is listed in the credits or somewhere on this YouTube thing. I'm not sure where. I'm not too familiar with all this stuff, but I'm getting familiar. I think this is my 16th video that I put out now, and I hope you're enjoying some of the things that we're doing. We're doing a cross between psychological things and practical things like, fixing your refrigerator. Okay, thanks again. Bye now.